There is a moment when you realize your mind is no longer a quiet home, but a battlefield. A moment when silence outside feels loud inside, when thoughts become heavier than reality itself. You sit alone, yet you are never alone. Your past sits beside you. Your future whispers in your ear. Your fears stand behind you. And your mind never stops talking. You replay conversations that ended years ago. You imagine disasters that may never happen. You analyze every detail of your life as if existence were a puzzle that must be solved immediately. This is overthinking, and it feels like intelligence, but it is suffering disguised as wisdom. The Stoics understood something most people discover too late. They knew the mind can be your greatest ally or your most ruthless enemy. They knew that no external tyrant can enslave you as deeply as your own uncontrolled thoughts. You believe you are thinking to protect yourself. Your mind is often preparing you for wars that never come. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are dark, your world becomes dark. If your thoughts are calm, your world becomes calm. You are not living in reality. You are living in the mental version of reality that your mind creates. Overthinking is your mind's attempt to dominate uncertainty. You want to predict every outcome. You want to control every emotion. You want guarantees in a universe built on change. The universe does not negotiate. It flows, it changes. It destroys and creates without asking permission. The Stoics did not resist this truth. They embraced it. They understood that control is not about bending the universe to your will. It is about bending your will to the nature of the universe. Imagine standing on the shore, watching waves crash endlessly. You cannot stop the waves. You cannot command the ocean, but you can learn to swim. This is the Stoic path. Your thoughts are waves. Your awareness is the ocean. People drown in their thoughts. The Stoic learns to float. Overthinking often begins with fear. Fear of losing, fear of failing, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone. The mind tries to solve fear with more thinking, but thinking cannot eliminate uncertainty. It can only multiply possibilities, and possibilities are infinite. So the mind spirals. It imagines worst-case scenarios. It rehearses pain before pain arrives. It relives trauma long after the event has passed. You become both the prisoner and the prison guard. The Stoics saw this clearly. They practiced a discipline of perception. They trained themselves to see reality as it is, not as fear paints it. They separated what is in their control from what is not. Your thoughts, your actions, your values, these are yours. Other people's opinions, the outcome of events, the passage of time, these are not. Overthinking is the attempt to control what cannot be controlled. Peace begins when you release that impossible burden. Imagine carrying a stone that is not yours. You carry it every day, complaining about the weight. You never drop it, because you believe you must carry it. Most of your thoughts are stones that are not yours to carry. The Stoic drops the stone. He does not drop responsibility. He drops illusion. To regain mental control, you must become a philosopher of your own mind. You must observe thoughts without becoming them. A thought appears. You do not chase it. You do not fight it. You watch it, like a bird flying across the sky. You are the sky. Thoughts are weather. This realization is not just poetic. It is revolutionary. You realize you are not your thoughts. You regain power. You can choose which thoughts to nourish and which to let fade. People believe every thought is truth. The Stoic knows thoughts are impressions, not facts. You think, I am not enough. The Stoic asks, according to what standard? You think, this will go wrong. The Stoic asks, is that certain or imagined? You think, I must control everything. The Stoic asks, is that within my power? This inner dialogue is mental sovereignty. Overthinking thrives in unexamined minds. Clarity thrives in examined minds. The Stoics practiced daily reflection. They reviewed their thoughts like a general reviewing troops. Which thoughts served virtue? Which thoughts served fear? They strengthened the first. They dismissed the second. Your mind is a kingdom. Your thoughts are citizens. Not all citizens deserve power. You are the emperor, but most people have abdicated. They let fear rule. They let anxiety dictate. They let imagination dominate reality. To regain control, you must reclaim your throne. You do this through discipline. Gentle, consistent, patient discipline. You return to breath when the mind wanders. You return to the present when the mind escapes. You return to reason when emotion storms. The Stoics did not kill emotion. They guided it with reason. They did not reject passion. They balanced it with wisdom. Overthinking is emotion without reason. Stoicism is emotion guided by philosophy. When you begin this practice, something subtle changes. The mind slows. The thoughts become less sticky. The present becomes vivid. You taste reality without the filter of fear. A leaf falls, you notice it. A sound appears, you hear it. Life becomes immediate, not theoretical. You realize that most suffering existed in the mind, not in the world. And this realization is both humbling and empowering. As the days pass and you begin to observe your mind, a strange clarity starts to emerge. You notice how thoughts rise without permission. You see how emotions follow thoughts like shadows. And for the first time, you understand that your suffering was never inevitable. It was trained, it was rehearsed, it was reinforced by habit. The Stoics believed that the mind is shaped not by fate, but by practice. You practice internally becomes your destiny externally. If you practice fear, you become a fearful person. If you practice gratitude, you become a grateful person. If you practice discipline, you become unbreakable. Overthinking is a habit, and like all habits, it can be unlearned. You begin to see how much of your mental noise is borrowed from society, deadlines, expectations, comparisons, judgments. The Stoics lived in empires, plagues, and political chaos, yet they cultivated peace within. Not because their world was simpler, but because their philosophy was deeper. They understood that external chaos does not require internal chaos. You live in a world that never stops talking. News never sleeps, notifications never end. Opinions flood your mind like a storm. And yet, the Stoic whispers across centuries, withdraw into yourself. There is always a quiet place inside. That quiet place is not absence of thought. It is presence of awareness. You begin to sit with your mind instead of running from it. You allow thoughts to appear without reacting. You let emotions arise without drowning. This is courage. Most people are afraid of silence because silence reveals the mind. But the Stoic seeks silence because silence reveals truth. In silence, you realize how many thoughts were never yours. They were inherited from fear, culture, trauma, expectation. And now you have a choice. You can keep repeating them, or you can rewrite them. The Stoics believed in rewriting the inner script. They practiced daily reminders of mortality, impermanence, and virtue. They reminded themselves that life is short, that death is natural, that fame is fleeting, that virtue is the only lasting possession. When you truly accept mortality, overthinking changes. You stop wasting energy on trivial worries. You stop replaying meaningless conversations. You stop fearing small judgments. Because time becomes precious, you realize that every minute spent in mental torture is a minute stolen from life. The Stoics practiced memento mori not to depress themselves, to awaken themselves. You begin to ask, if today were my last day, would I spend it trapped in thoughts? This question is a sword that cuts through overthinking. You see that most worries are small when viewed from the perspective of mortality. You see that peace is not postponed until the future. Peace is practiced now. As you regain mental control, your identity shifts. You no longer define yourself by anxiety. You no longer define yourself by overanalysis. You define yourself by discipline and clarity. You become someone who observes before reacting. Someone who pauses before judging. Someone who acts with intention, not impulse. This is Stoic character. Character is not what you feel in calm moments. Character is how you think in chaos. Overthinking is chaos inside. Stoicism is order inside. You do not eliminate emotion. You elevate it through reason. When fear arises, you examine it. When desire arises, you moderate it. When anger arises, you redirect it. This is inner governance. The Stoics compared the mind to a city. Without laws, the city falls into anarchy. With laws, the city thrives. Your philosophy is your law. Without philosophy, thoughts rule you. With philosophy, you rule thoughts. You begin to practice voluntary discomfort. You practice letting go. You practice not reacting. You practice being misunderstood without collapsing. And slowly, you become mentally resilient. Overthinking weakens when resilience grows. You stop catastrophizing. You stop personalizing everything. You stop assuming worst intentions. You see reality clearly. A person ignores you. It is not a disaster. A plan fails. It is not a tragedy. A relationship changes. It is not the end of your existence. The Stoics saw change as natural. You cannot step into the same river twice. Everything flows. Attachment to permanence creates suffering. Acceptance of change creates peace. Mental control is not clinging. It is flowing with wisdom. As you flow, your mind becomes spacious. There is room for thought, but not obsession. Room for emotion, but not domination. You become the observer of your inner world. And then, something quietly miraculous happens. You start to feel a deep inner stillness that does not depend on circumstances, a stillness that remains in success and failure, praise and criticism, gain and loss. This is Stoic equanimity. No longer chase happiness as an external prize. You cultivate tranquility as an internal state. You realize that the greatest freedom is freedom from your own mental tyranny. Overthinking was a tyrant. Stoicism is liberation. Walk through life with a quiet mind and a steady heart. You meet uncertainty with courage. You meet adversity with calm. You meet joy with gratitude. And you realize that mental control was never about suppressing life. It was about participating in life with clarity. You do not need to think less to be wise. You need to think better. You do not need to eliminate thoughts. You need to choose them. The Stoics believed that wisdom is not accumulated knowledge, but disciplined perception. Perception is power. When you change perception, you change experience. Rain is no longer a problem. It is nature. Delay is no longer a disaster. It is reality. Criticism is no longer an attack. It is information. Overthinking thrives on distorted perception. Stoicism thrives on accurate perception. As you master perception, you master experience. And now, you stand in the storm, not fighting it, not fleeing it, but observing it, calm, grounded, present. This is mental sovereignty. In this sovereignty, you discover a final truth. Control was never about controlling thoughts. It was about controlling your relationship with thoughts. Thoughts come and go, you remain. The universe changes, you remain aligned. People arrive and depart, you remain grounded. And in this groundedness, you find freedom. So when the mind becomes loud again, you do not panic. You smile. You return to discipline. You return to philosophy. You return to the present. And in that return, you reclaim your throne. If this video resonated with you, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who struggles with their mind. Leave a comment about what part spoke to you. Subscribe to the channel for more long, cinematic, stoic, and philosophical journeys that will reshape the way you think and live. And as you walk forward, carry this quiet stoic truth with you. You cannot control the thoughts that appear, but you can always control the mind that receives them. There comes a moment when you realize the mind is not your enemy. It is a powerful instrument that was never taught how to rest. You have spent years sharpening your thoughts, feeding your mind information, training it to analyze, to calculate, to judge. No one taught you how to be still. The Stoics believed that wisdom is not accumulation, but subtraction, not adding more ideas, removing illusions. You begin to see how much of your suffering was built from illusions. The illusion that you must understand everything. The illusion that you must predict everything. The illusion that you must control everything. These illusions become chains. When you drop them, something ancient awakens inside you. A quiet presence, a steady awareness, a grounded self that does not panic when thoughts appear. You realize that the mind is like a wild forest. If you never walk through it with intention, it becomes dense, dark, and confusing. When you walk through it daily, with discipline and light, paths emerge. The Stoics walked through their minds every day. They wrote. They reflected. They questioned their impressions. They believed that every thought should pass through the gate of reason before entering the soul. Begin to adopt this gate. A thought appears. They don't respect me. You pause. You examine. Is this fact or interpretation? A thought appears. Will never succeed. You pause. Is this prophecy or fear? A thought appears. I must figure everything out right now. You pause. Is this urgency real or imagined? This pause is power. Most people live without pause. They react instantly, emotionally, unconsciously. They are driven by impulses they never chose. The Stoic inserts a space between stimulus and response. In that space, freedom exists. You begin to live in that space. Overthinking loses strength when you learn to pause, because overthinking feeds on speed, urgency, emotional momentum. Slowness is its enemy. You slow down your breath, you slow down your reactions, you slow down your judgments, and suddenly becomes clearer. The Stoics believed that the present moment is sacred, not mystical, not romantic. Sacred because it is the only moment you can act with virtue. You cannot change the past. You cannot control the future. You can shape this moment. Overthinking pulls you away from this moment. Stoicism brings you back. You begin to feel the ground beneath your feet, the air entering your lungs, the subtle rhythm of existence. This is not escape. This is reality. The mind often tries to escape reality through thought. It escapes into memory. It escapes into fantasy. It escapes into fear. But Stoicism is a return to what is. You begin to understand that mental control is not about building a fortress inside your head. It is about building clarity. Clarity of values, clarity of priorities, clarity of what matters and what does not. The Stoics believe that most human suffering comes from misjudging what is important. Chase fame, approval, wealth, pleasure. We ignore virtue, character, wisdom, presence. Overthinking often revolves around trivial things. Did they think? What if they judge me? What if I lose status? The Stoic steps back and sees the cosmic scale. Planets orbit, stars explode, civilizations rise and fall. In this vastness, opinions are whispers. This cosmic perspective shrinks overthinking. It does not make you small. It makes your fears small. You realize that the universe is indifferent to your worries. And strangely, this is comforting. It means you are free to live. You do not have to perform for the cosmos. You do not have to justify your existence to eternity. You are here is enough. The Stoics practiced this cosmic humility. They looked at the night sky and remembered their place. Not to feel insignificant, to feel liberated from ego. Ego fuels overthinking. Ego asks, what will they think of me? Ego fears humiliation, rejection, invisibility. Stoicism dissolves ego into virtue. You are not here to impress. You are here to live wisely. When ego dissolves, overthinking weakens. You stop replaying conversations. You stop obsessing over impressions. You stop imagining judgment in every silence. You become lighter. As your mental control deepens, your relationships change. You no longer overanalyze every message. You no longer catastrophize every pause. You no longer interpret everything as personal. You understand that others have minds, fears, histories, and struggles of their own. Their actions are not always about you. This understanding is compassion. The Stoics believed in universal brotherhood. They saw all humans as part of the same rational cosmos. When you see others as fellow travelers, not threats, overthinking about relationships fades. You stop asking, why did they do that to me? And start asking, what might they be experiencing? This shift is powerful. Mental control is not isolation. It is connection without obsession. You care without clinging. You love without possession. You engage without losing yourself. This is Stoic love. Overthinking in relationships often comes from fear of loss. Stoicism teaches acceptance of impermanence. Everything changes. People change. Feelings change. Life changes. Clinging to permanence is clinging to illusion. When you accept impermanence, you love more freely. You appreciate moments without trying to freeze them. You cherish people without trying to own them. This is mental freedom. As you walk this path, you begin to feel something rare in the modern world: inner stability. A stability that does not depend on likes, messages, validation, or certainty. A stability rooted in philosophy and discipline. You become like a lighthouse. Storms rage, but you remain. This is the Stoic ideal. In this stability, you find joy, not loud excitement, but quiet joy. Joy in clarity, joy in presence, joy in simply being. You realize that the mind was never meant to be a constant problem-solving machine. It was meant to be a tool guided by wisdom. You guide it now. As the sun sets on another day, you sit in silence, feeling your breath, observing your thoughts, and sensing the vast universe around you. You are a small part of something immense, and yet within you exists an entire universe of awareness. The mind becomes quiet, the world becomes vast, you become present. And in that presence, you feel a subtle truth. Control was never about domination. Control was about understanding. There is a point on this path where you stop asking how to control the mind and begin asking a deeper question: why the mind seeks control at all. You begin to see that beneath overthinking lies a quiet fear of existence itself. The fear that life is unpredictable. The fear that love is fragile. The fear that meaning is uncertain. The Stoics did not run from these fears. They stared directly into them, calmly, philosophers standing before the abyss. They believed that life is a dance between what is given and what is chosen. Fate sets the stage. You choose how to perform upon it. This is amor fati, the love of fate, not passive acceptance, but active embrace. You begin to understand that every event, pleasant or painful, is part of the cosmic script, not scripted for cruelty, but for growth. The storm that broke your heart shaped your strength. The confusion that haunted your mind sharpened your awareness. Losses that wounded you taught you what truly matters. When you see life this way, overthinking transforms. It no longer tries to rewrite reality. It learns to read reality with wisdom. The Stoics believe that the universe is a living, rational system. Every event is connected. Every cause has a consequence. Every moment is part of a greater order beyond individual understanding. You are a wave in this cosmic ocean. You rise, you fall, you move, and yet the ocean remains. When you fight the ocean, you suffer. When you flow with it, you discover peace. This is the paradox of mental control. True control comes from surrendering to what cannot be controlled. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Start asking, "How can I respond with virtue?" This shift is the essence of Stoic power. The Stoics believe that virtue is the only true good. Courage, justice, and temperance, these are within your control. Fame is not. Wealth is not. Health is not. Longevity is not. You realize that most overthinking is about externals. What if I lose money? What if I lose love? What if I lose status? Stoicism reframes loss. You can lose everything external and still possess character. And character is everything. When you internalize this, fear loosens its grip. Stop clinging to outcomes. You stop obsessing over scenarios. You stop constructing mental prisons out of hypothetical futures. You become centered. The Stoics practice negative visualization, imagining loss to free themselves from fear. They did not do this to suffer. They did this to appreciate. Imagine losing everything. Then return to the present and realize you still have it. This creates gratitude so powerful that overthinking dissolves. You stop worrying about losing because you are already prepared. You stop fearing change because you see it as natural. Mental control is not about optimism. It is about realism infused with courage. You become realistic about impermanence, yet courageous in action. As you walk through life with this mindset, you notice a transformation in your identity. You no longer see yourself as a victim of thoughts. You see yourself as a steward of consciousness. Consciousness becomes a sacred space. Thoughts enter and leave like guests. You decide which guests to entertain. This is inner sovereignty. The Stoics believed that every person has a divine spark of reason. To live according to reason is to live according to nature. Nature does not overthink. A tree does not worry about the future. A river does not regret the past. A star does not doubt its worth. They simply are. Humans suffer because we forget how to be. Stoicism is a return to being. You sit under the night sky and feel the ancient rhythm of existence. You sense that the same laws guiding galaxies guide your heartbeat. In this vastness, your worries shrink. Your overthinking becomes a whisper in a cosmic symphony. You realize that you are both insignificant and infinitely meaningful at the same time. Insignificant in scale, meaningful in experience. This duality is the human condition. The Stoics embraced this duality. They were humble before the cosmos and powerful within themselves. This is the Stoic paradox, small in the universe, infinite in virtue. As you meditate on this, your mind becomes spacious. There is room for thought, but not obsession. Room for emotion, but not tyranny. You feel a quiet dignity. This dignity comes from living in alignment with nature and reason. You do not fight reality. You shape yourself. And slowly, your life becomes less about controlling the world and more about cultivating the self. You stop chasing external validation. You stop fearing external judgment. You stop obsessing over external outcomes. You focus on internal excellence. This is the Stoic revolution. As your days unfold, you encounter pain, joy, loss, connection, uncertainty. But your mind remains grounded, not numb, not detached, but deeply present and steady. You cry when necessary. You laugh when appropriate. You act with courage when required. But you do not drown in thought. You understand that suffering is often multiplied by resistance. Pain plus resistance equals suffering. Stoicism removes resistance. You feel pain. You accept pain. You learn from pain. And in acceptance, pain loses its tyranny. You walk through the world with a quiet reverence for existence. Every moment becomes a teacher. Every encounter becomes a mirror. Every challenge becomes training. This is how a Stoic lives. Overthinking fades into thoughtful living. Your mind is no longer a storm. It is a clear sky with passing clouds. And as you stand in that clear sky, you feel something like gratitude for existence itself. Not for perfection, not for certainty, but for the mystery of being alive. The Stoics believed that life is a gift from nature, not a guarantee of happiness, but an opportunity for virtue. You embrace this opportunity. In doing so, you transcend the prison of the mind.